Aaron Judge reached that moment the day he heard about Shohei Ohtani. Not the highlight reel Ohtani. Not the number on the contract or the exit velocity on the home run or the spin rate on the splitter. The other Ohtani. The one who showed up to WBC preparation carrying an injury that would have sent most players directly to the trainer's table, looked his manager in the eye, and said, without drama, without negotiation, that he was playing. When that story reached Judge, the American League's most decorated active player, the man tasked with leading Team USA into what may be the most anticipated WBC in the tournament's history, he did not respond with the careful, media-trained language that fills most pre-tournament press conferences. He said two words that stopped every reporter in that room. No more excuses. And in those three words, blunt, unvarnished, offered without spin or softening, Aaron Judge told the world exactly what Shohei Ohtani's resolve means to the greatest collection of baseball talent the United States has ever assembled. And exactly how frightened they are of facing him. To understand why Judge's response hit with the force it did, you need to understand the specific context in which he said it. Team USA's WBC preparation camp has been, by every account, a serious operation. This is not the collection of reluctant stars grudgingly fulfilling international obligations that characterized some earlier American WBC rosters. The players assembled under this flag arrived with something to prove, to themselves, to their country, and specifically to the team that handed the United States one of its most painful losses in recent international baseball memory. Japan. Ohtani. The 2023 WBC Final. That loss lives in the American baseball consciousness in a specific way. Not as a fluke. Not as a bad day. As a statement, a clear, emphatic declaration from Shohei Ohtani and Samurai Japan that the balance of power in international baseball had shifted, and that the United States would need to fundamentally reckon with that shift before they could reclaim what they considered rightfully theirs. Judge has reckoned with it. Quietly, privately, in the way that serious competitors process significant losses, not by forgetting them but by letting them sit inside, sharpening something. So when news filtered into the American camp that Ohtani was preparing for this WBC carrying physical limitations that the Japanese medical staff and Samurai Japan management had been carefully monitoring, the natural human expectation might have been relief. A formidable opponent, perhaps compromised. A slight tilting of the competitive landscape in America's favor. That is not what Aaron Judge felt. A teammate who was present when the conversation turned to Ohtani's condition described Judge's reaction as immediate and unambiguous. He didn't look relieved. He looked, if anything, more focused. More serious. Like someone who had just received information that confirmed a suspicion he had been carrying for weeks. He picked up his phone, read the report carefully, set it down, and said to the room, "He's playing hurt and he's still coming. No more excuses." 3 words. But language this compressed from a man as measured as Aaron Judge carries layers that deserve to be unpacked carefully. The first layer is the most obvious. Judge was speaking to his own team. To the most talented roster Team USA has ever assembled, a lineup so deep with all-stars and MVP candidates and Cy Young winners that the names alone read like a greatest hits collection of modern American baseball. He was telling them, directly and without softening, that Shohei Ohtani preparing to compete through physical adversity eliminated the last available reason for any American player to arrive at this tournament with anything less than complete, total commitment. If Ohtani plays hurt, you play everything. The second layer is more complex and more interesting. Because when Judge said, "No more excuses," he was not only addressing his teammates. He was, whether consciously or not, addressing the entire American relationship with the WBC, a relationship that has historically been complicated by questions of motivation, by the tension between club loyalty and national representation, by the lingering suspicion among some American players and fans that the tournament simply matters less to United States stars than it does to players from countries where baseball carries a different kind of cultural weight. Ohtani's resolve, the willingness to push through physical limitation for the privilege of wearing Japan's uniform, makes that entire conversation impossible to have. It closes the door on it completely. You cannot explain away competitive disadvantage by pointing to motivation gaps when the man on the other side is playing injured. The third layer is the most personal. Judge, who has carried Team USA's leadership expectations with characteristic seriousness, was making a declaration about himself as much as about anyone else. He was saying, "I see what Ohtani is bringing to this. I understand the standard being set. And I am matching it." When Judge's two-word response began circulating, first through the reporters in that press session, then across baseball media, then into the broader American sports conversation, the reaction was unlike anything a WBC press conference had generated from the American side in years. Not because the words were complicated. Because they weren't. American sports media, which has spent considerable energy over the past several years building the narrative of Aaron Judge as the rightful heir to the tradition of great American baseball captains, recognized immediately what they were hearing. This was not PR. This was not messaging strategy. This was a competitor responding to another competitor's example in the most direct language available. ESPN ran the clip on loop. The reaction videos accumulated millions of views within hours. Former players, names from across multiple generations of American baseball greatness, weighed in with a consistency that itself became part of the story. The consensus, from Pedro Martinez to Derek Jeter to players currently active on MLB rosters, was essentially identical. Judge meant it. And it matters. What generated the sensation, though, was not simply Judge's response in isolation. It was the picture that response painted when set alongside what was simultaneously being reported from the Samurai Japan camp. Two captains. Two preparation philosophies. Two national baseball cultures. And between them, a standard of commitment so high that it was forcing even the most talented players on both rosters to examine themselves honestly. One American baseball journalist who has covered multiple WBC tournaments wrote that this exchange felt different from anything he had witnessed in previous editions of the tournament. Usually the motivation conversation is subtext, he wrote. This time it's the entire story. And Judge just made it impossible to look away. To understand why Judge's response landed the way it did, you need to understand what Ohtani's preparation has actually looked like from the inside, because the word resolve can sound abstract until it is given specific, concrete shape. Teammates and staff members who have been present at Samurai Japan's training sessions describe a player who, whatever physical limitations he is managing, has approached every session with the same methodical intensity that has defined his entire career. The preparation routine, the nutritional precision, the mechanical work, the obsessive study of opposing pitching tendencies, has not been abbreviated. If anything, witnesses describe it as heightened. One Samurai Japan player, speaking carefully to avoid disclosing medical specifics, said, "You watch him prepare and you think, this is what the standard looks like. Every day. No days off from the preparation. Even when it would be completely understandable to take a day off from the preparation." This is the thing about Ohtani, that his physical gifts, the arm speed, the bat speed, the extraordinary athletic baseline, occasionally obscure in the public conversation. The gifts are real and they are extraordinary. But they are not the explanation for what he has become. The explanation for what he has become is a relationship with preparation that borders on the philosophical. Ohtani does not prepare in order to perform. He prepares because preparation is, for him, the point. The performance is simply what preparation looks like when it meets competition. Dave Roberts understood this when he flew to Japan to check on him personally. Ibata understands it every morning when he watches his captain go through a pre-practice routine that the younger players on the roster have attempted to imitate and quietly abandoned. And now Aaron Judge understands it, or rather, has stated publicly that he understands it, in a way that will define Team USA's entire approach to this tournament. The description attached to this American roster, the greatest national team in history, is not marketing language. It is, by the cold arithmetic of individual achievement, essentially accurate. The pitching depth alone would constitute a legitimate pennant contender in any MLB season. The lineup, from top to bottom, contains more combined all-star selections than some franchises accumulate in a decade. The defensive versatility gives the manager options that previous American WBC rosters could only theorize about. And yet, none of that matters if the team that takes the field against Japan brings anything less than everything. Because Japan, with Ohtani playing through whatever he is playing through, with a roster forged in the specific fire of national pride that the Japanese baseball culture produces in ways that are genuinely difficult to replicate elsewhere, will bring everything. Judge knows this. Which is why, "No more excuses" was not bravado. It was a manager, because that is what a captain is, setting the terms for what this tournament requires from every person wearing the American uniform. The sensation spreading across the United States right now is not simply excitement about a baseball tournament. It is the recognition that something real is happening. That two of the greatest players of their generation, wearing different uniforms and carrying different national expectations, are both approaching this competition with a seriousness that elevates the entire enterprise. When greatness responds to greatness with honesty rather than deflection, when Aaron Judge looks at what Shohei Ohtani is bringing and says not, "We'll be fine," but, "No more excuses," something shifts in the competitive atmosphere. The greatest national team in history is being asked, by its own captain, to be worthy of that description. Strip away the tournament structure, the bracket mathematics, the pitching matchups and defensive alignments and managerial strategy, strip all of it away and what remains is a question that great competition always asks of the people inside it. How much do you actually want this? Ohtani answered that question the moment he told the medical staff and his manager that he was playing. Not because the answer was easy or comfortable. Because for Ohtani, there was genuinely no other answer available. The uniform means too much. The moment means too much. The opportunity to stand on that field representing his country means too much. Judge heard that answer from across the Pacific. And rather than respond with relief or strategy or careful media management, he responded with honesty. No more excuses. Which means, I hear you. I see what you're bringing. And I promise, on behalf of every player wearing this uniform, that we will bring the same. This is what the greatest national team in history actually looks like. Not the roster. Not the statistics. Not the contract values or the individual accolades or the projected win probabilities. It looks like a captain who, upon hearing what the man on the other side is willing to do, responds not with comfort but with accountability. The baseball starts soon. The excuses ended the moment Judge said what he said. Everything from here is earned. 2 captains. 2 countries. 1 standard. And a tournament that, for the first time in years, feels like it might actually be worthy of both of them.